There's a certain kind of respect and honor that you need to show to people that are in authority over you, but there's also a kind of respect you need to show to all human beings, whether or not they're in authority over you. When Peter was talking to the church, he talked about what the Bible requires us to do concerning those who are in authority. And in that same verse, he also talks about what we should do towards those who are not in authority. He says that we are to honor the emperor. That's the sort of idea that we were talking about the last time that we talked about the fifth commandment, isn't it? We are to honor those who are in authority over us. But in that very same verse, Peter also says, honor everyone. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17. There is a sense in which we should show honor to everyone simply because they are human beings, simply because they are someone who is created in the image of God. As I've been studying the Ten Commandments, one of the things I've been using is the Westminster Standards. There was a group of pastors who met a few hundred years ago who talked quite a lot about the Ten Commandments, and they came up with a series of questions and answers that were useful for teaching people about the Ten Commandments. And on the fifth commandment, here's a couple of the questions that they asked and the answers that they provided. What are the duties of equals? And here's the answer that they came up with. The duties of equals are to regard the dignity and worth of each other, in giving honor to go one before another, and to rejoice in each other's gifts and advancement as their own. And what are the sins of equals? The sins of equals are, besides the neglect of duties required, the undervaluing of the worth, envying the gifts, grieving at the advancement of prosperity one of another, and usurping preeminence one over another. So here's what they're saying. We are to treat every single person with dignity, whether they are rich or poor, whether they are from our nation or they're an outsider, whether they are from the popular group or the unpopular group. Everyone is made in God's image, from the richest emperor in the world down to the poorest person in the world. Everyone is made in God's image. And so everyone needs to be treated with a degree of respect, showing no favoritism at all. And the way that I would like to approach this, the way that I would like to talk with you about these sorts of things today, is to talk about the idea of equality from Genesis all the way to Revelation. We're going to talk about the image of God in man and how that plays out in the relationship between the nations. And after we're done with that, we're going to talk about a couple of other issues. We're going to talk about issues of prejudice and issues of favoritism. But we're going to begin today in the beginning, in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God He created him. Male and female He created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. These verses are saying that Adam and Eve and all of their children, all of their descendants are created in the image of God. That means that man is very different than the rest of creation. There is something that is very special about human beings. It is not true about any of the animals. It's not true about anything else. We as human beings are created to have a relationship with God. We are created in such a way that we are able to communicate with Him. We are able to worship Him. And it also means that we are able to represent Him in the world. We are made like God so that we can picture Him. All of us who are sons of Adam and who are the daughters of Eve bear the very image of God. And we are told in these verses that one of the things that Adam was to do, one of the things that Adam and his descendants were to do, is to be fruitful and multiply. To fill the entire earth with the images of God, like the stars fill the sky. And of course, there's a little problem that happens pretty early on, isn't there? Adam was given this high calling. He was said, "You're in the image of." He was told that he was made in the image of God. He was told to be fruitful and multiply. But then, just a little bit later, there's a problem. Adam and his wife sinned against God. Sin enters into the picture, and the image of God in Adam and in his wife was distorted. This is a famous picture. I think it's from the Edo period. But it is a picture called The Great Wave off Kanagawa. And it was painted by Hokusai-san. Let's say that you are able to go to the original painting. Let's say, well, this is just a cheap copy. It costs like 50 yen or something. But let's say that you were to go to the original copy of this, and you were to take a paintbrush, and you were to dip it down in some ink. And you were to just take it and go right across there. And you left a big, nasty, black streak of paint across it. You would still be able to see the wave. You'd still be able to see the little boats with the guys that are there kind of hiding down in the storm. You'd still be able to see Fujisan in the background. You'd still be able to see all that. But it would be distorted. It would be ruined. People would look at it and they would say the image is ruined. That's kind of like what happened to human beings. When they sinned against God, they still picture God. They're still made in His image. There is still a certain dignity that is appropriate to them simply because they reflect something about God. But there is also something about them that is ruined. There is something that is distorted. There is something that is marred. There is some beauty that has been lost. When you look at these verses in Genesis, there is something amazing that is going on. God made man in His image. He gave him a very high calling. He gave him this purpose to fulfill. Fill the earth with the image of me, like stars filling the sky. Sin did not destroy that completely. Sin did not destroy that completely. That plan is still in effect. The earth is filled with the image of God. Wherever you want to go, there are people. Now, granted, it is a marred image of God. It is a sinful image of God. It doesn't reflect God as well as it should. But nonetheless, part of that promise is fulfilled. And that promise is fulfilled completely in Jesus Christ. God, in the first few chapters of Genesis, promises to send His very Son. And His Son is going to restore this broken image in man. Adam failed to do perfectly what God had called him to do. But Jesus is going to come into the picture like the second Adam, like a new Adam. And He is going to complete everything that the first Adam should have done. And He is going to make everything right. And we can see a glimpse of that. We can see a tiny bit of that just in the first few chapters of Genesis. Here's the next chapter in the story. Skip over to Genesis chapter 12, and we'll look at verses 1 to 3. Genesis 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all of the families of the earth shall be blessed." That's quite a promise. It is quite a promise from a wonderful God. God is promising to make Abraham into a great nation. He is going to take this man who doesn't have any children of his own, and He is going to make sure that Abraham is able to have children, and his family is going to grow into a great nation, the nation of Israel. God puts His very special favor onto Abraham's family, and He says that He is going to use Abraham's family for a very important purpose. If you look at the very end of verse 3, you see something that is interesting. In you, all of the families of the earth shall be blessed. What is that talking about? What does it mean when God is saying to Abraham, "In you, all of the families of the earth will be blessed"?